Hi, Ala.
اهلا اهلا دانو. Hi Dan.
How are you? Hi, Anu. We cannot hear you, Anu. You're on mute.
Sorry. How are you, Dana?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Very good. Thanks.
Okay, so now we'll start our session with the poll.
Mhm.
So let's start the poll. So everyone of you guys have to scan that QR code and answer the question with these four answers. And I'll do that myself as well. Okay, so now we will show the responses. So we have 40 percentage for the first two responses and 10 percentage for the last two responses. And would you like to add on that?
Sure thing. No, thanks, Dana. Hello, everybody. It's almost kind of aligned to the discussion that Ala and I had when we were actually kind of framing these options. So we would like to kind of go through each of these options and discuss more about it. So I would like to share my thoughts first and then hand it over to Ala. So the first one is waterfall for planning and agile for execution. So this, as we see there, it seems to be having an overwhelmingly positive response there. And if you think of it, when we are going to be clear about what is that we would like to achieve, both the stakeholders and the project team, and they're going to be clear on what is that needs to be achieved, planning out how to achieve it is going to be a straightforward process, or it can be in a structured approach, and hence waterfall for planning. And once we have identified what is that we want to achieve, and we have a set of requirements, prioritizing them and kind of delivering the ones which kind of delivers maximum value to the business, that's the way to go, and that's the agile way of execution. That's the first option. The second option is managing different streams using different methodologies. Waterfall and agile methodologies. It is almost similar to the first one, and hence the poll results also states the same. Um, but one quick thing that we need to be aware of is ensuring that the project team and the stakeholders are on the same page, kind of giving them a high level idea of why a particular methodology is being followed for a particular stream. That's a key. And once they get an understanding, and they also have a bit of reasoning as to why we are using, say, for example, agile stream for the software development, that means everyone is going to be onboarded and everyone is clear of why we are going ahead with the approach. So that's the second one. The third one is agile for ideation. And as you guys have clearly explained, or indicated, it's not too common an approach. But a scenario that we can think of is, so say, for example, the business has a high level vision. What is that they would like to achieve? But then the lower level deliverables are not too clear. And say the stakeholders are all on different pages, kind of, this is what they would like to achieve. But when you're going to be having the agile way of a brainstorming to kind of understand what exactly the business wants, and then you kind of arrive at some consensus and what is that the project needs to be delivering at the end, that's where agile kind of pays off when you use for ideation. And then once we have a clarity on how exactly we would like to do that, then we can go ahead with the planning way, the structured approach, the waterfall way. And the last one is definitely not hybrid project management, rather it is a blended workflow scenario. So those are my thoughts. Ala, over to you. What do you think? I mean, what was that, a surprise, the results, or was it kind of what you thought of?
Well, it's more or less aligned with our thinking. Yes, this hybrid topic has been there already for several years, and of course, let's say the closest answer to what we are looking for is this: starting with having this skeleton of waterfall, and during execution, we are going with more agile sprints. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Good luck. So thanks for that, Dana. I mean, I think this is what we wanted to talk about, and I think the next slide is where I think so that yeah. So this is just us, the bio.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. My name is Alal Hajaid, and Anu is also with me here. I'm PMP and PMI ACP certified, which means that I have enough experience and, or let's say, the education part of the agile and waterfall methodologies. I've been there in the IT domain for more than 16 years, successfully delivered more than 30 large-scale projects and programs for the government and smart cities. I'm also leading several distributed teams across the world, And I'm also leading the project management community in Nortel, which is called Project Management Hive. So in there also it's more of a learning platform and the community for project and delivery managers. Anu?
Oh, thanks, Ala. So I am also a certified PMP, and I've also got the Agile certification, the PMI ACP. I've mostly spent my time on the business side of project management, so that's 10 plus years in the telecommunication sector. So it's my stakeholder management is something which I'm happy about, I would say, and my stakeholders are also happy about in the telecommunication sector, and I've also been in education and also in government sectors. And I love to be that liaison between my business units and the technical teams to ensure that the solution delivered is indeed beneficial to my business areas. That's me.
Thank you, Anu. And of course, now we have already answered the question, what does hybrid project management mean to you? So we will go into more details about when shall I go hybrid. So there are several things to look at, like when to decide when shall I go hybrid, when shall I go traditional or waterfall, and also when should I go agile. So let's just take a look at like what is waterfall or traditional. It's about more detailed planning, and the final product is actually delivered in the end of the project. While the agile is about more failing fast, failing better, and incremental value delivery. Hybrid is something in between. Like in the traditional triangle for scope, time, and cost, we know that the scope is actually fixed in the waterfall model, and time and cost can be changed during the through change management process. In agile, the scope is variable, and we can always reprioritize, and we need to keep the same budget and the same timeline. So one deciding factor for deciding for moving forward with our methodology is the understanding the value of each of them, and understanding also if we have some contracts. Sometimes, especially in this part of the world, the contracts are mainly fixed price contracts, and sometimes even the methodology is forced within those RFPs or the contracts. So more or less, you will get more of the waterfall and the traditional one, but you can still go with hybrid. Yes, you may not go fully agile with those because the scope is very clear and it's already decided. So what you can do is actually like do the skeleton of fixed price, or let's say waterfall, and then in the details you can go with agile. And there's a very interesting matrix. It's called Stacy matrix that you can see here. It's more about, as Anu mentioned, like what is the problem that we are trying to solve, and how clear the approach is. So the more clear the problem is and the requirements are, the more clear the approach and the technology are, is the more we are going more traditional. Like there are not many risks, there are not many unknowns. So why should I go, with more iterative process? And the more we go to the less clarity on the approach and the requirements, is this I mean this is the right place for hybrid. So like medium, let's say, clarity on requirements, and medium clarity on the approach or the technology. The more or the less clarity that we have on the technology and the requirements is where we are going agile. We really know, like in high level, what we need. We have a roadmap, but we still need to, really think it through and see what's happening. And based on that, we need to change and reprioritize. And this is where we are going for agile. And of course, there's this area of, like fully vague and totally unclear in terms of requirements and approach. And this is where we are going Kanban. And it's just about, doing the next right thing. We really don't know what's going on. We just plan for 1 or 2 weeks. We have a Kanban board, so to do, doing, and done, and after that we add more items to our backlog. But Anu, I would like also to know, like, what is the type of hybrid project management you have been involved in your organization?
Sure. The hybrid approach that I have worked on or been involved in, Alap, it's more of that the concurrent usage of traditional and waterfall methodologies. What I mean by that is not all business areas use the same kind of approach to deliver their deliverables or working on their deliverables. So, say for example, in this example, I worked in the telecommunications sector where I represented customer service and sales. So there, once I get an idea of what the project is, then I go ahead with a structured approach or the waterfall approach to gather requirements and prepare my stakeholders for that. So looking at this process diagram, so usually it's based on the company's strategy or the market trends, projects will be formulated. And once projects are available, saying that this is what we're going to be delivering for this financial year or over the next 2 or 3 years, once that's decided, we have those discussions, and the respective business areas that's going to be impacted would be informed of the project that's coming their way. So then my role as a business PM would be to do a business impact assessment to identify groups within my business areas that's going to be impacted by the project. And that helps me to identify my stakeholders. And once I get hold of my have a list of my stakeholders, then it's all about getting them on board in terms of explaining to them what exactly is coming their way, what is the potential benefit their teams are going to be facing, and what could potentially be the negative impacts to their team, and how we are going to be mitigating it. After I have all those discussions, we get into this requirement gathering where subject matter experts from each of these areas usually come on board and the requirement gathering discussions happen. And in fact, it doesn't happen in silos. Rather, we will also be having the technical teams, the IT team members, also part of these requirement gathering sessions to provide clarity on what's possible and what's not, or what needs to be parked. So once these requirements are gathered through this waterfall approach, it becomes part of what's on the right side. So the requirement backlog that the software development team will be maintaining. So that's the backlog will be prepared. And as I mentioned, while I would provide responses from um, uh, from a customer service and sales perspective, similarly, other business areas will also be providing that information. And so it is now essential to prioritize the requirements to identify which ones are going to be delivering the maximum value to the business. So there, as a product owner, I'll be kind of providing justifications on why requirements from a customer service or sales perspective needs to have a higher priority. And that discussion happens. And then when we finalize certain set of requirements for a release, we provide the sign off and development starts. So when the release development is happening in parallel, we will also be working with our business areas to prepare them for the launch through training and getting them ready for that. So this is how it is alarming. It's more of that concurrent usage of waterfall and agile, rather starting off with waterfall and going into agile. So this is my idea of the hybrid project management in my space. So what's yours? I mean, I'm really curious to know. I mean, especially when you're going to be having a wide range of stakeholders, how is the reception like? Are they resistant when you say you're going to mix and match methodologies? Are they okay with that?
Yeah, maybe I can start with an example. So
Okay.
during my experience, I was also serving in some part as a client and some part as a vendor. And I think that was very valuable, understanding both parts of the project. So one of my favorite projects, it's an app that we built to the biggest smart city in the world. And we have already completed 3 phases, and those phases are going. So we start with a very small MVP, which is about creating this digital identity for the employees and allowing them to unlock or open all the gates using their mobile application. After that, it turned to be this one-stop shop for all the employees in that organization. So for onboarding, for all this services that are offered for the employees, and of course the way long-term objective is actually to go with a citizen app. So we had several stakeholder groups. It starts with the security officers at the gates and in the building, and ends up with the sector directors and the people who would like to see their part also in the application. The project had several streams, and each stream, of course, we had to pick like a methodology to follow on. In general, like it's an ongoing project. There's a long term roadmap, but when we look at the product, the user experience, the customer experience, we are more agile. Like we move with the key stakeholders, get the, let's say, their input and feedback about, let's say, our offerings, and then of course we send it to our planning. Software delivery is also fully agile. Why? Because like we need to, as you mentioned in your example, like you need to create this backlog, plan a release, and then it goes through development and testing and so on. So this part of the process is agile. Now, what's not agile in this process? And it's the infrastructure. For example, we are working, or using some cloud technologies. We have some dependencies on IT teams, security teams, and other teams. So this has to be planned properly. If we need to actually meet the end date with successful delivery, those things need to go sequential. Like for example, I send my release to the security testing. After that, They do validate. If they have some findings, they share them. I have some specific time slot to fix them, then send again for review, and then, for example, no issues, and then they can give a green light to go ahead. Same thing goes for the deployments and for the infrastructure. So also the training, like to bring people, different stakeholders from different units, you need to have a clear training plan. So you should be very clear about like when these trainings are happening, what is the agenda for those trainings, and like this is also planned in more waterfallish model. So that's one of the examples of, let's say, when we are using hybrid in our projects or one of
Good one.
my projects. But Anu, maybe I should also take it further to the importance of initiating the project with hybrid methodology. So in Nortel, with the company where I work in, we do emphasize on the importance of the project initiation, whether it's going with agile, waterfall, or any other methodology. Why? Because most of the risks and issues that may happen in the project can be actually avoided if we do proper initiation. When we look at the hybrid methodology, we are looking at people, processes, and business environment. And those are, let's say, the key areas where we need to focus. So, how important is this initiation for each of them? How important it is for the people, for the process, and for the business environment? So, we spend around 1 to 3 months, for example, to initiate a project, and we keep doing those reviews to make sure that the initiation is continuing. We usually start with the team building, let's say internally and in the company. We are working with distributed teams, so we try to bring everyone together in the same place so that we can do this ice breaking. People can talk to each other, and then the communication becomes much easier. Next step is what we do is we also introduce the people to the methodology, and that's very important. People need to understand: are we going agile, waterfall, or hybrid? And hybrid is a bit newer than the others, so also people need to understand like we are going with those streams with more the traditional way, and the other streams are, for example, following the agile methodologies. And then the most important thing that should be done with our teams and with our clients is setting up the ways of working. That includes setting up the roles, the organization structure, setting up the expectations. What are the software delivery processes they are following? What are the rituals? What are the ceremonies? Like as you mentioned, we have this backlog prioritization and grooming and retrospectives and sprint planning, daily standards. All of these things are agreed. When, frequency, who's involved, and how it's done. Once that part is done, we take the same exercise to the customer. And after that, with the customer also we need to onboard them on the methodology. Even if their contract is fixed price and they have, fixed scope, we tell them, okay, maybe in the beginning, let's just agree on that it will be traditional project management way. We set up a clear plan for the whole thing, but during the execution, we are going to do this incremental value delivery, and we will be sharing our, let's say, releases every couple of months. Our sprints will be taking 2 to 3 weeks, for example, each. So, but Anu, like that also makes me wonder, like, how would that be mapped to the process that you have explained earlier?
On the initiation bit, I mean, one of the main things, it's all about kind of getting the waterfall way of requirements gathered. The understanding or the impression that the business has is everything is going to be delivered on day one when the product launches. But then since we are going to be having the agile prioritization way, they kind of think, why should something be kind of descoped? It's actually not being descoped, rather it's just being reprioritized, so that even if it's not going to be launched in the first release, it's definitely going to be accommodated in the upcoming releases, or subsequent releases, I should say. So that clarity, and once that understanding that you were talking about, what's the methodology we're going to be following, once that's kind of clearly explained to the business stakeholders, I would say they are onboarded. And I think it has been easy, I would say. I might be wrong, but on the projects that I have worked on, it's been easy as long as you clearly communicate and be transparent. Happy to come on board.
True, true.
I have a question for you, Anu. Are there any specific metrics to measure hybrid?
Uh, uh, I mean, so hybrid is just another project management methodology. So just like any other methodology, metrics like time to market, or the cost involved in delivering the project, and the quality of the output. So I would say those are the metrics that you go by, irrespective of whether it's hybrid or agile or waterfall.
And is this a formal methodology?
Definitely. Yeah, it is indeed. So, in fact, although it has just it's gaining traction, I would say, amongst professionals. And in fact, PMI, the Project Management Institute, actually has a micro credential now for hybrid project management. And
Mhm.
it's simple as, I mean, you don't have an application process. Rather, you complete the course, you pass the exam, and then you actually get the digital badge, which you can use on your resume or profile, and it's called the Agile Hybrid Project Pro. It's a
Mhm.
micro credential. Yeah, it is indeed a formal certification, I would say.
And it never expires.
There you go. That's the point. It doesn't.
Ala, is there any particular project management software that is best suited for to support hybrid?
Definitely, there are many. Project management information systems or softwares are usually designed to cover one of them, like either waterfall or agile. But if we look at Jira, for example, you have Jira plans as a module, and you have already this sprint planning and agile, let's say, way of managing projects, and you also have this Kanban, like for this the unknowns. So definitely there are many tools like Jira, the Trello, even Microsoft. I think more or less you can do some customizations and get that type of support or supporting tool for managing your projects in a hybrid way.
Great. And is hybrid more relevant for any particular industry or any type of project?
Well, I believe not.
Mhm.
I'm mainly focusing on software delivery, but when we think about hybrid project management, it can actually be done in so many domains. Take event planning, for example. Like if I have
Mhm.
an event, I need to do some, planning. I can set up the whole event plan. The deadline is clear, but during the execution of the event planning, when you are talking to people, you are getting involving the people, sending advertisements and so on. Things cannot be like really following the day-to-day plan. So
True.
you can go more agile there, but with some clear targets. Even going with even larger industrial project can also go this way. The challenge is about getting the materials on time, getting the people on time, and so on. So for those specific areas, I think we need to go with more waterfall. But if we have some flexibility in other areas, I think we can also use this
With the
agile
agile.
hybrid.
Great, great. Unfortunately, we're running out of time and we need to move on with our next session. I would like to thank you both, Anu and Ala, for this awesome discussion. And it was really insightful and awesome. Now,